Greetings, ladies and gentlemen and students, and welcome back to the Library of Monsters. I know, a second episode in less than a month. It must be a Christmas miracle. Well, I got one better for you. There's actually going to be 2 episodes back to back. While the last few videos have been a blast to talk about, what with kaiju fanfictions, communities, and some really good books that I've read, I sort of want to dive back into doing some stuff that the channel was originally built on. And that is talking about and rating some good old-fashioned and oftentimes very goofy monsters. And what better way to get back in that little groove than to talk about a couple of one-off monsters from the original Ultraman television show, Dodongo and the Mummy Man. Now, I'm going to split them up in their own videos because, trust me, I got a lot to say about these little speed bump kaijus in the Ultraman universe. And for those of you who need a bit of a refresher, I grade these monsters on a 10-point scale, 1 to 10. And I base the ratings on 3 main criteria: history, design, and personality. So with that out of the way, intros are over. So let's get started and talk about the master of this duo, the Mummy Man. And spoilers, I really hate the name this guy was given. The Mummy Man debuted in episode 12 of the original Ultraman television series, Cry of the Mummy. And aside from having a very generic name, even his subtitle is pretty stupid. The Mummy Phantom. He's not a freaking ghost, guys. He's a 6-foot-tall monkey man thing that's wrapped in bandages and has been hibernating for over 7,000 years. It's nothing like an intangible specter, though he does act like a Scooby-Doo ghost when he's running after people. Hint hint, more on that later. And his hibernation of his, well, it must have been really deep, because the scientists that found him thought he was actually dead and that he was just really well preserved. You know, him and his giant horse dragon, which just happened to be nearby. Ugh, strap in folks, we're just starting. The history part of this is gonna be a little bit odd here. So, like I said, the Mummy Man is an ancient creature that was found in a cave and thought to be dead. So, what do you do with such a historic discovery that could revolutionize the theories about Japan's past and its human-like civilizations that lived alongside our prehistoric ancestors? Why, it's simple. You just experiment on them by shooting electricity into them. Duh. Because, you know, science. It's a bit ridiculous, but I mean, the scientists don't even wear protective equipment. You know, that stuff that can actually shield you from ancient germs or anything that might be on this creature's dead body. So, I'm not really expecting the most scientific methods with these guys. I guess it's Science Patrol cutbacks, I guess? Anyhoo, the monster's left alone one night in his room and actually begins to wake up a bit. Well, kind of. The creature uses some sort of telekinetic-like mind abilities or something like that, and flips on the power switch and just juices himself up with some good old-fashioned modern electricity. It's very Frankenstein-esque at this part of the story, I admit. Someone must have been a fan of the original film, that's for sure. And honestly, hint hint, that's not going to be the only reference to Universal Monsters that I'll be making with this guy here. So, the Mummy Man wakes up, obviously pretty pissed that he was dragged out of his cave for no good reason and experimented on, and he sort of goes on a little killing spree. With a strength of 10 men, he sort of makes short work of the guards before he's finally cornered by the Science Patrol and a bunch of cops. And in true Bruce Lee fighting choreography, the giant group of men all attack the monster, one at a time. Just lemmings walking off a cliff, I swear. See, the scientists actually realized that a creature that's managed to hibernate and live for so long might actually help extend humanity's life, so they try not to kill him. However, when the darn thing starts to eye laser blast the beat cops, they sort of step in and put him down with a point-blank shot of Arashi's spider shot. Basically, it's a bazooka for lasers. The mummy obviously is killed, but not before uttering his death cries, gravelly-like roars that awaken his giant sleeping companion. His, pet, so to speak, the quadruped dragon Dodongo. The horse-like reptile awakens and begins to inflict as much death and destruction upon Japan and the humans over the demise of his master. And that's basically it. That's really all the history there is for this guy, other than being mentioned in some Ultraman Orb novels. He never really shows up again, except in a stage show, but the suit at that point looks really rough. Pretty cut and dry, so to speak. So let's get to the fun part of the puzzles now, personality and design. Now, for personality-wise, he's sort of a mute slasher villain kind of. He wakes up and starts killing anyone that he comes across. He has his hands outstretched with claws at the ready, Sort of reminds me of the Wolfman when he attacked people in the old Lon Chaney Jr. days. So this monster is sort of a mashup between Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and the Mummy. Hell, if you suck some blood, I would throw an old Dracula in there as well. And you'd have the perfect little quartet of monsters all embodied in this guy. He just sort of growls, murders, and shoots his eye beams though. That's pretty much it. He's a very stereotypical monster for this age of filmmaking. Doesn't really have a whole lot to chew on and be in the memorable department. His design, however, well, it does leave something to be remembered for the viewer, that's for sure. I've sort of gone back and forth on this, whether I really like it or whether I really hate it. I will admit straight out, it's very strange. It's a monkey mummy man. Yeesh, try to say that 3 times fast. Anywho, mummies can be found on every continent around the world. It's just that the process and popularity has been inseparable from Egyptian culture. Hell, when mummies were all the rage in the 19th century, people actually threw what were called unwrapping parties. Basically, that's when a bunch of rich people get around, throw a party, and they all wrap a centuries-old mummy for funs and kicks. Yeah, totally respectful and fun, huh? It's whatever, honestly. Couple this with Universal Pictures' wrapped head-to-toe version, complete with staggering and outstretched arms that are ready for helpless victims. Yeah, that sort of added fuel to the fire, so to speak. So, when looking at this character, you simply have to try to remove that ingrained mummy adaptation that's been popularized in Egyptian myth. There are other examples of mummification throughout the world. So, how I interpret this monster is that his race was basically this ape-like, subhuman-like species of creature. Think of the Morlocks from the Time Machine. This individual must have been a pretty important member to his society and was wrapped and entombed with his pet Dodongo on the mountain. Considering that he's still technically alive/dead when he was found, I would probably guess that maybe there were some chemicals or something in the bandages that were wrapped around him that sort of acted like a life-extending mixture. Again, it's just a guess, but it would explain a lot about his look. And honestly, that look is sort of goofy. The face mask is very stereotypical of the time period when depicting ape men. It's never convincing and it's very stiff. I do like the light up eyes though, and I also like the placement of the fur along the shoulders, arms, and the V-shaped pattern on the chest. Good color too. Definitely not enough blue-gray monsters out there. It fits him, honestly. It's just that goofy face and giant eyes that sort of kills the whole vibe. But I like the overall stance and body build of this character. He looks strong and imposing, and his laser eyes are pretty horrifying when he starts spamming them into groups of cops around him. Could have done with a bit more unique roar though. I like that it's low and gravelly, but they don't have a whole lot of variation with the sound. It's sort of the same roar used over and over. No pitch inflation or anything like that. Not unless you count his death cries when he does right before he passes on and calls his dragon to save him. So, now we're at the fun part of the video. Let's take all these puzzle pieces and attempt to quantify them into a suitable rating for this guy. And, like a broken record, I will say that I wish I could give him a higher rating, but honestly, 3.5 stars is really the best I can do. And half that star is mostly because of the fact that he's using a mummy motif, which was pretty uncommon in the kaiju world. And he gets paired with a giant dragon. That kinda elevates him just a little bit. But against all other monsters, he's below average. There's just not enough to chew on in the history of the personality department of this guy, because he only takes up half the episode. The other half is his giant companion. He just wakes up and runs around with his arms stretched out like an 80s slasher villain, and his look, while certainly unique, was executed a bit on the rough side, like most primate kaijus at this time. I wish I could give him more, but honestly, he's no less memorable than a certain placid Bronto Dino that I did a review on years ago. So, c'est la vie to the master of this duo in this episode. Tune in next time to see his quote-unquote pet kaiju, Dodongo. But for now, this book is finished and the library is closed. Until next time, my friends, have fun, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.